All right, I want to talk to you today about 5 things that were quietly working against me for years, and I had no idea. Not one idea. I was putting in the hours, getting up early, going to work, taking care of my family, doing what I thought a responsible man does. But somewhere in my late 40s, something started shifting in a direction I did not like. The energy wasn't there the way it used to be. The weight around my midsection kept creeping up no matter what I did. I'd wake up stiff. I'd sit down for a minute and feel like I needed 10 more. My strength wasn't what it was. My sharpness wasn't what it was. And I kept telling myself it was just the job, just the schedule, just the years adding up. That's what I told myself for almost a decade. Here's the truth, and I want to say this plainly because I think a lot of men in their 50s and 60s are in exactly the same place I was. Part of what was happening was natural. After about 30 years old, a man's testosterone begins to decline. Slowly, about 1% per year. You don't feel it right away. But over 15 or 20 years, that accumulation is real, and it shows up in every area of your life. Your energy, your body composition, your recovery, your mood, your drive, the way you carry yourself. Now, I'm not a doctor. I want to be clear about that. I'm a 64-year-old man from Franklin, Tennessee, who spent 37 years in construction management, retired at 59, and made a decision to stop sliding and start rebuilding. That decision changed everything for me. And what I learned along the way is that there were specific habits, specific patterns I was living with every single day that were actively making that natural decline worse, speeding it up, working against me. 5 of them. 5 things I needed to stop doing or do differently before anything else had a chance to work. That's what this is about. And I'll tell you right now, none of this is complicated. None of it requires a gym membership or a coaching program or a cabinet full of supplements. What it requires is paying attention to things you've probably been ignoring because nobody told you they mattered this much. So let's get into it. The first thing, and if you take nothing else from this, take this, is chronic stress. I spent the better part of 30 years in high-pressure work environments. Construction sites don't slow down because you're tired. Projects don't care that you had a bad night's sleep. Deadlines, crew problems, budget overruns, weather delays, client calls, the pressure never really stopped. And I told myself I was handling it because I kept functioning. I kept showing up. I kept getting the job done. What I didn't understand until much later is what that long-term stress was doing inside my body. Here's what happens when you're under sustained stress. And I mean the everyday kind, not a single bad day, but weeks and months of pressure. Your body releases cortisol. That's the stress hormone. Your system produces it for a reason. Back when a man had to react quickly to something genuinely dangerous, cortisol helped him do that. It sharpens your focus, gets blood to your muscles, prepares you to deal with an immediate threat. That's the original design. The problem is that your body cannot tell the difference between a genuine emergency and a long Tuesday of back-to-back site issues and a phone that won't stop ringing. It treats the chronic grind the same way it treats the acute crisis. It keeps releasing cortisol. And cortisol and testosterone operate in opposition to each other. When one goes up, the other tends to go down. Your body has limited resources, and when it is constantly prioritizing survival mode, when it thinks you are always under threat, it deprioritizes the hormonal functions that support muscle, energy, recovery, and drive. That's not theory. That's what was happening to me. What I learned the hard way is that managing stress is not optional if you care about staying capable. It is a practical health priority, the same as eating well or training consistently. What helped me, and what I actually do now, is build deliberate stillness into the day. Not every man wants to meditate, and I'm not telling you to do anything that doesn't fit how you live. But I walk every morning. That walk is not for cardio. It's for clearing my head before the day gets loud. I protect my evenings, Karen and I don't keep things loud or stimulating late at night. I wind down. I go to bed at a reasonable hour. And I genuinely try, not to carry tomorrow's problems into tonight. Simple, but it took me a long time to accept that simple was the right answer. The second thing is sleep. And I'll be direct about this because I think a lot of men treat sleep like it's negotiable. It's not. When I was in my heaviest years of work, running a full operation schedule, managing crew, dealing with everything that comes with that, I was staying up too late and getting up early. Not because I needed to, but because that's what I'd always done. Late nights watching TV, staying up with whatever I was trying to push through mentally, not giving sleep the respect it deserved. Here's what I understand now that I didn't then. Your testosterone production largely happens while you sleep. The majority of a man's daily testosterone release occurs during sleep, specifically during deep, restorative sleep cycles. If you're sleeping 4 or 5 hours, you are cutting that process short. Not slightly, significantly. Men who consistently get 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep have meaningfully higher testosterone levels than men who chronically sleep less. That's not a preference. That's a biological reality with direct consequences for your energy, your muscle, your body composition, your mood, and your recovery. When I finally started treating sleep as part of my training, not as dead time between days, but as an active part of getting stronger and staying capable, everything started improving faster. I went to bed earlier. I stopped letting screens run late into the night. I kept the bedroom dark and cool. I built a wind-down habit that actually worked. And within a few weeks, I was waking up feeling different. Not perfect, but genuinely better. If you're looking at every supplement and every workout protocol and every nutritional approach, but your sleep is a disaster, I'll tell you what I'd tell my son. Get your sleep sorted first. Everything else builds on top of that foundation. Without it, you're fighting uphill. 7 to 8 hours. Consistent. Dark, quiet environment. Wind down routine that doesn't involve a bright screen right before bed. Start there. That's what made the difference for me. The third thing is carrying excess body fat, particularly around the midsection. I know this sounds like a weight loss conversation, and I want you to hear me on this because it's more specific than that. When I was at my heaviest, I was close to 222 pounds at my worst stretch. I felt it in every way, in my joints, in my energy, in how I moved through a day. I looked heavier and I felt heavier, and I chalked it up to age. But here's something that genuinely surprised me when I started understanding what was happening physiologically. Excess fat tissue, especially visceral fat, the kind that accumulates around your midsection, is not metabolically neutral. It's active tissue. And one of the things it does is produce estrogen. That's the female sex hormone. In men, small amounts of estrogen are normal and necessary. But when you're carrying a significant amount of body fat around the abdomen, that tissue is producing estrogen in amounts that start to work against your testosterone levels. It throws off the hormonal balance. So you've got the natural age-related decline already happening. And then you've got excess body fat actively working to tip that balance further in the wrong direction. That's not a good combination. Now, and this is important, I'm not talking about becoming obsessive about body weight. I'm not talking about chasing some extreme leanness goal. What I'm talking about is getting your body composition to a functional, healthy place. Leaner than where most men are after years of sedentary work and inconsistent eating. Not shredded, just honest and healthy. For me, that meant losing about 34 pounds from my peak. It took time, more than a year of consistent work, but the impact on how I felt was not subtle. My blood pressure improved, my energy improved, my joints moved better, and those markers that had my doctor concerned in 2019 started heading back in the right direction. The way I got there was not extreme. I'll get to food in a moment, but the principle is this. If you've been carrying extra weight in the midsection for years, reducing it is not just about how you look. It's about creating a hormonal environment inside your body that actually supports your strength, your energy, and your capability. That matters. The fourth thing is something I think surprises a lot of men. And it surprised me too when I first understood it. Too much of the wrong kind of exercise can work against your hormonal health. Now, I want to be careful here because I'm not saying don't move. I walk every day. That is non-negotiable for me. And I believe walking is one of the most powerful and sustainable things a man my age can do for his health. What I'm talking about is a specific pattern I see a lot of men fall into when they finally decide they need to do something about their body. They go heavy on long, steady state cardio. They get on a treadmill or an elliptical and grind away for an hour every day, 6 days a week, maybe more. They feel like they're doing the work, and the weight isn't moving. The body isn't changing the way they expected, and some of them are feeling more run down than before. Here's what I learned. Excessive cardio, especially when done without adequate nutrition and without balancing it against strength work, elevates cortisol. We already talked about what chronic cortisol elevation does. And when you're doing too much steady state aerobic work and not enough muscle building work, your body gets efficient at burning through muscle along with fat. That's exactly the opposite of what an older man needs. After 60, muscle is one of your most critical health assets. It supports your metabolism. It protects your joints. It keeps you functional and independent. Burning through it with excessive cardio while cutting calories is one of the fastest ways to feel worse, not better. What worked for me was shifting my focus. I still walk every day, 30 to 60 minutes outside when I can, but that's movement, not grinding. 3 days a week, I do structured strength training. Simple full body work in my garage. Trap bar deadlifts, rows, goblet squats, farmer carries, split squats, loaded carries. Nothing exotic. Nothing that requires a YouTube tutorial just to get set up. Functional, practical, compound movements that build real strength. The combination of daily walking and consistent strength training, not one or the other, but both together, is what changed my body composition and how I felt more than anything else I tried. If you've been grinding away on cardio and wondering why it's not working, it might be time to reconsider the approach. Add the strength work. Protect your muscle. The cardio does not need to disappear. It just needs to know its place. The fifth thing is something a lot of well-meaning men do when they're trying to clean up their eating, and it ends up working against them. They cut fat, and they cut carbohydrates. Sometimes both at once. I understand the instinct. I made this exact mistake. When I finally got serious about my nutrition in 2019 and 2020, my first thought was, cut the bad stuff. Eat leaner, lighter, lower calorie. And in the process, I started avoiding things like whole eggs, red meat, and starchy foods like potatoes, because that's what I'd absorbed from years of general diet advice. Here's what the evidence actually shows, and what I learned through experience. Fat, and specifically dietary fat, including saturated fat, is not your enemy when it comes to hormonal health. Cholesterol, which is found in things like whole eggs and quality red meat, is the direct precursor to testosterone. Your body uses cholesterol to manufacture testosterone. If you chronically deprive your body of dietary fat and cholesterol in the name of eating clean, you are removing a raw material your body needs for hormone production. I eat whole eggs every morning. Not egg whites, whole eggs. I eat steak 1 or 2 times a week. Good quality beef. I eat avocado, olive oil, and I don't obsess over fat content in my food choices. I eat real food. And I haven't cut carbohydrates out. Low carbohydrate diets have been associated with lower testosterone levels in men, particularly when combined with intense training or significant caloric restriction. Carbohydrates are not poison. Potatoes, rice, fruit, oats, these are not the problem. Processed junk, sugar-heavy convenience food, mindless late-night snacking, those were my problems, not the potatoes. What I changed was the quality and the intentionality of what I ate. More protein, consistently, every meal. Better overall food choices. Real whole foods is the base. Less convenience food garbage. Fewer late-night portions that I wasn't thinking about. That's it. No exotic protocol. No extreme elimination. My nutrition is built around protein-centered meals. Eggs and turkey sausage in the morning. Grilled chicken or lean beef at lunch. A solid dinner with protein, a starch, and vegetables. I keep Greek yogurt around. Cottage cheese. A protein shake when I need it. creatine, vitamin D, magnesium, fish oil, the basics that have actual support behind them. And I grill on weekends because I enjoy it. A burger or a steak with potatoes and a simple salad is not the enemy. Living in a state of perpetual dietary restriction and guilt is. You don't need perfect, you need repeatable. Consistent meals that support your muscle, your energy, and your recovery, and that you can maintain for years, not weeks. That's what made the difference for me. So let me bring this together. 5 things that were working against me. Things I didn't fully understand until I was on the other side of 58 and started paying attention for the first time. Chronic stress that never got managed. Poor sleep that I treated like a luxury instead of a requirement. Excess body fat that was doing more internal damage than I realized. Too much cardio of the wrong kind without enough strength work to balance it. And a well-intentioned approach to eating that was stripping out the fats and carbohydrates my body actually needed to function well. None of these required a dramatic intervention. None of them required a specialist or an expensive program. They required honesty. They required paying attention. They required making different decisions, day after day, until those decisions became the normal way I live. I'm 64 years old. I'm in the best shape I've been in since my 40s, and I'd argue I'm healthier now than I was then, because now I'm actually paying attention. I lost 34 pounds. My blood pressure is in a healthy range. I move well. I train 3 days a week. I walk every day. My energy is consistent. And I feel like the kind of man I want to be for Karen, for my kids, for my grandkids. That didn't happen overnight. It started with a wake-up call at 58 that I could not ignore. A checkup that made it clear something had to change. And then it was just walking, and better food, and eventually some structured training, and enough sleep, and managing the stress that had piled up for years. Repeated, consistently, without trying to make it perfect. You are not too old to turn this around. I'm speaking from experience when I say that. The men watching this who are in their 50s and 60s and feeling the slide, feeling heavier, stiffer, less capable, less sharp than they used to be. That slide is not inevitable. It does not have to keep going in that direction, but you do need to stop doing the things that are making it worse. And you need to start doing simple things that actually work. If this channel helps you do that, then I'm glad you found it. Stick around. Subscribe if you want to keep seeing this kind of content. Real, practical, no-nonsense information for men who want to stay strong, capable, and independent as they get older. That's what we're here for. I'll see you in the next one.